Peace and love, fam. Welcome back again. It's your boy Monte. You know what it is. You know what I do. You know how I get down. About to get into what it is we want to talk about. For those of you who are new, thanks for coming and joining the channel. Hopefully you find what it is that I got to give to be beneficial. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. If you like it even more, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for the notifications. For those of you who've been riding with me, you know how appreciative I am of you and all the comments that you leave below. All right, guys, so we're going to get it, before I get into what it is we're going to talk about today, which is the understanding the male species. We got to get an understanding, and we'll do a series on the male species as well as the female species. Understanding the nature, that which is natural to that specific expression of the human species, all right? And most any mammal species. But with that being the case, again, guys, I have a ton of videos for those of you new on herbs, on fasting, on plant-based nutrition, on exercise. I have exercise video, a library full of those that you can follow and make up your own regimen with. You name it, I got it when it comes to health and fitness, guys, with the herbs, with the fasting, with the nutrition, with the detoxing, you name it, I got it. The CBD oil, I just did a series on those last week. 4-part series. And I can have another video to doing that because I found out some more important information with the CBD oil, talking about broad spectrum and full spectrum, the slight difference between those two. All right, but we'll get into what we want to talk about today. Understanding the male species. So what I want to break down to you today, guys, is we have to understand what is natural for the propensity of a male species, human male species, whose hormonal development has not been disrupted by chemicals, by toxins, by vaccines, by anything that is in the environment that can alter the natural functioning of those hormones that distinguish the male and the female. We are different. This is not a misogynist type of approach. This is an actual fact. The male and female are different, which is a beautiful thing. We are made different for the survival of the species, and we're going to break this down. All right, understanding the male species. Natural propensity in our primitive state. So we have to understand too, guys, that naturally we are a certain way. Biological functions go on with or without our approval. So we're talking about the primitive state of our being. We evolved into a thinking individual, a acting individual, an individual with aim or no aim, an individual with purpose or no purpose. That comes later. But whether we develop that or not, our biological functions, our natural propensities will continue to go whether we evolve mentally, spiritually, emotionally or not. All right, so we want to make sure we distinguish the fact that we live in an animal body and our brains and our minds allow us to be human and to develop and do things, but that animal body actually has its own workings, and it's going to go on with or without your elevation. All right, so natural propensity, primitive by nature. The male species is a provider, primitive. The male species is a protector. That's his primitive response. And the male species is a procreator, meaning that it wants to reproduce as often as he can. All right? So that's the primitive propensity of the male. Now you will have in society those males who lean toward this and actually embrace this as part of their being when they evolve even mentally and emotionally and take on that primitive part of their nature and use it to his or her, to use it to his advantage to do the things that it was naturally in him to do, and to do it at a higher level, being that he has evolved as far as mentally and emotionally to be able to have aim, purpose, and a direction to do what it is that he naturally does. Provide, protect, and procreate. Now, the evolved propensities of a male comes as part of a socially created concept, but you can use him becoming a husband, him becoming a father. Creating and becoming a father are two different things. Biologically, he is going to create any chance he can and any chance he will. He will create. This is from the primitive point of our being. It is natural for us to seek to create. We have put other things on it as far as love making, etc. But from the natural perspective, it's not about love making. It's about reproduction of the species. We're talking about the primitive display of our being. Now, the evolved propensities allow us to become a husband loving, allows us to become a father loving, allows for us to grow emotionally, maturity, mental stability. That all comes from the evolved propensities of the male species as we evolve with our mental, emotional maturity and growth. You understand what I'm saying? So this allows us to be that full human. In this state, we're still primitive. In this state, this is our primitive inclinations to provide, to protect, and to procreate, i.e. reproduce. Evolved is our willingness to become a loving husband, a loving father, and to be emotionally mature to deal with situations. Now, we're going to look at the natural versus the socially created concepts, because this is where we get things twisted, all right? I'm not saying that socially created concepts are not necessary, and some of them, I'm not saying that they're not good, but I want to explain to you where we missed the boat as to taking socially created concepts and eliminating the fact that these primitive propensities are the basis of our being, and they will always be there in a naturally produced human body that has not been disrupted with chemicals, etc., that affect the natural expression of hormones for that specific counterpart of the human species. All right? So now let's go socially created concepts. Masculine toxicity. You hear a lot about that. You hear a lot about masculine toxicity. It's bad. That's something that is destroying the peace amongst individuals. It's what is wrong with most males who act out and become other than citizens that treat people with equality, etc. That has nothing to do with masculinity. Has nothing to do with masculinity. This is a misnomer, and I'm going to break it down and I'm going to eradicate that foolishness. That is male psychosis, what they're talking about. It has nothing to do with masculinity when you're dealing with an individual who happen to be male, who engages in sexism, violence, demeaning of others, etc. That has nothing to do with his masculinity. That has everything to do with his male psychosis, meaning his brain, his emotional state. He is not normal. Whether he functions in the society well beyond his anger outbursts or his sexism, etc., that has nothing to do with his masculinity. He's dealing with a psychosis. So let's stop saying masculine toxicity. That is not an actual fact. Masculine has nothing to do with this toxic male psychosis that this individual displays on a regular basis. And that's individuals in high places with good jobs, with great leaders of nations, etc. Has nothing to do with his masculinity. Has everything to do with his psychosis. All right? So let's get away from that. Now, the feminization of the male. This is in part to try to eliminate what they have misdetermined and misidentified what masculinity is by labeling it toxic when individuals act out and become crazy. It has nothing to do with the masculine, has everything to do with the male psychosis. Now, this is something that those in the main society are utilizing to try to combat what they have determined is masculine toxicity. They want the male to become more feminine. This is against the natural expression of any male that hasn't been chemically disrupted. Their endocrine system has not been hijacked by certain chemicals, toxicity, the foods, the vaccines. I say vaccines because I do believe they're detrimental to the body, as well as to the mind, as well as to the hormones, etc. So they want to teach the male to be more feminine. It has nothing to do with him being more feminine. It has something to do with him being more emotionally mature, mentally mature, and the absence of the male psychosis that can be pretty much precipitated by different things that affect the human body and affect the development and the expression of a normal, peaceful human brain. All right. So it's deep, guys. We're not gonna. Because I'm getting all the way up into 12 minutes. I know most of you not gonna stay that long. So we're gonna switch it out real quick. We'll finish it up real quick. So this attempt to feminize the male in order to eliminate masculine toxicity, which is a misnomer, is another socially created concept that is backwards. You do not want a feminine man, and a man would never want to be feminine in his full self. Feminization and being caring, loving, soft, empathetic are not the same thing. You understand what I'm saying? Feminization is for the female counterpart of the human species, all right? Cheating. Now, this is a little bit off. Some people have equating that a male cheating, and this is going to come back to my monogamy video, equals no love. I will break that down and dispute that. Just because an individual cheats doesn't mean that he doesn't love his or his spouse. Now, it's a little different when the female cheat. I know you guys want to say, well, it's no difference. It is a difference. I'll break it down, but not in this video. Eliminating gender identity. Again, another attempt to neutralize masculine toxicity. Again, masculine toxicity is not that's a misnomer. This is not what you're experiencing when you see these people act crazy and be sexist, be racist, be violent, be unempathetic, etc. So eliminating gender identity has been something that has been pushed to try to equal out the ideal of the male and the female. We are different, guys, and that's a beautiful thing that we are different. The male and female are different, and it's a necessity for the survival of the species that we remain different in the way that nature naturally brought us up in order to be equal counterparts for the survival and for the extension of the human species, all right? So this is a deep concept, guys. We'll break it down a little bit more deeper in the next video. I'll keep these videos coming, because this is a deep one. Feel free to comment below, whether you disagree or agree. Just make it a comment that is not an attack on anybody or anything. Address it in a way that mature people disagree with each other, all right? So I'm sending you peace and love, guys. I'm sending you peace and love.